In today's episode, we talk to you about games that we've recently played, what we've got going on and coming up, and most importantly, our big topic, what makes for a great board game night. I'm Carlos.
I'm Mitchell.
Stick around.
You're listening to the Beans and Dice Podcast, a podcast about how we game.
All right, folks, in this segment, we're going to talk about what we've been playing lately. And Mitch, I'm going to let you open it up with what you've been up to game-wise.
Sure thing. So we've talked a lot about Lost Ruins of Arnak. You guys taught me that game when I was down in Tampa. And, the long-awaited, or I guess it wasn't really that longly awaited because the Arnak's not that old. Expedition Leaders recently came out. At Gen Con, they had it. Whenever we discovered that they were having a demo, there was only one spot left. So I gracefully allowed Will to play it. And he had given us his thoughts. Well, a friend of mine got the expansion in. It has, of course, some more of the same. So extra cards, extra assistance. There are new research tracks, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But the big thing, the big draw is that there are now asymmetric player powers. So there are, I think 6 different leaders that you can pick from. You can choose or you can randomize. We just randomized. And they all have some type of special ability. The one I got, I think you would really like it thematically, Carlos. It was a falconer. So every round, my falcon would get further down this falcon track on my board. I had some, so that's another thing. Each of the asymmetric leaders has their own unique starting deck now. It's not all the same deck. And so I had cards that could let me send my falcon out further other than just it going by time. And anytime I played a card that would recall him back, I could get the benefit of how far he went. So the farther out he goes, the more benefits he's going to get, right? And so it's like, do I call him back quickly and get a smaller benefit, but I'll be able to do that over and over again? Or do I let him go really far? And I think the farthest he goes, it's like you can just activate a top level site, even if there's a worker there, just like that, without even needing a worker. Whereas the lowest one is get $1 and it's a minor action. So kind of cool. I like that.
Each time you activate him, you push him a level forward.
Right. So each time the Moonstaff moves, he moves up.
Yep.
But also I have cards that can make him move up faster than that.
But he's only moving a certain amount of spaces each time?
Right. He's moving one space at a time. And I think maybe there's 4 or 5 different spaces.
Okay, so
he can be on.
How much time do you allow and spend to get him farther up to those nicer locations? I see. Yeah,
it was cool. So, and then let's see. My buddy to the right of me, he only has 1 meeple. But he has these, I think it's called the archaeologist or something like that. He has snacks. And so if he eats a snack, he can take his meeple off the board. And then as the game progresses, he can get more snacks, though they'll cost money, to where by the end of the game, he could be moving his meeple 4 different times. Going around the board, the next person had this card that was always in her hand. It was like a hot air balloon. And if she bought stuff from the mainland, those items, they would go straight into her hand. It's like if they airdropped the items to her. My other buddy, he had his own personal discard of fear, but then he could spin that fear to do better powers. I think he was like a magician or something. So he wanted to get a lot of fear.
He started with fear? More fear than everybody else?
No, everybody starts with fear. But instead of discarding or exiling his fear to the public discard, he did it on his board. And so then that was currency for him to buy stuff
voodoo.
with. Yeah, it's kind of cool.
Santeria magic or something.
Yeah, so the other 2 leaders, we looked at them, but I don't remember them because we didn't play with them. It was a 4-player game. Whenever we initially looked at the board, we were like, wow, things are a lot more expensive. The new research track, it's costing you not just your regular resources. For example, there's a guardian, and you can't progress past it till you can beat that guardian. But the weird thing was, I don't know if it's because our abilities let us do more. I think every single one of us got to the top of that research track, even though the costs were more. It definitely extended the length of the game, but it also bumped up our points. And of course, that's increases the player experience. I liked it. It changed a good bit. It almost felt like a different game because there are these brand new mechanics that we're all interacting with, and it really freshened it up for me.
I'm glad to hear good news about it. I've been holding off on buying it because my local shop has not been able to get it, and I really, really like to support my local shop. And I know that the local Cool Stuff had it in stock and had the opportunity to buy it, but I passed. I'm really hoping they get this distribution stuff fixed out because, just keeping these brick and mortars out from being able to get these quality expansions and games is it's not right. So I'm really going to hold off. Maybe I'll play your copy when I'm in Louisiana in a month, or hopefully my local shop will have it by then. But I'm excited about that.
Yeah, it was a good one. What you have going on?
Well, I mean, if Rob were here, he would not be stunned to hear that I'm going to talk about Blood Bowl.
I'm not stunned either.
All right. So, I had the camping trip last week, and I'm sure y'all who also partake in the call-in show got to watch me stream live from the campgrounds inside of a tent while being blown around in the wind.
That was pretty cool. You know what I was great. Like, we tried streaming from a convention center and like had all kind of problems, and you're like in a tent, like ghetto rigged, and had no problems.
And it was a beautiful stream. Like, it was a better stream than what I'm used to on a regular day.
Yeah, it was better than the day with Gnarly Carly with your internet dropping out, right?
Oh God,
I'm sorry. Too soon. Too soon.
Yeah, that hurt my heart. It was rough. So I got that done, but that really ate away at my ability to game for the whole weekend, because I just took a lot of family time away. So I had to come back. I had to catch up on work. I had to catch up on family chores. So I only got one official tabletop game in this week, and that was Blood Bowl for my first match for the new season. We have a new 10-week season at Armada Games. I ended up having to forfeit the week before, in preparation for the camping trip. I didn't have enough time to get in there and get the game in before I left to go camping.
You call yourself a Blood Bowl fan and you're forfeiting?
Bro, I had to pack. I had to get things ready for the camping trip. I just couldn't make it happen, and I had to get work done before I left. So I had to forfeit that one, so I was a little bummed. Last season, I went in with like a 6-game winning streak. It was amazing. So I knew right off the bat my winning streak was blown. But I got my first match in against a strong player. Yeah, so in Melbourne is where I played with Destin before, or we played together in the Melbourne tournament. So this guy's a Blood Bowl guy.
To Australia to play Blood Bowl?
Yeah. What's that address from Nemo?
42 Wallaby Way, Sydney?
No, it's in Melbourne, Florida. There's a city in Florida on the Space Coast called Melbourne. A lot of Blood Bowl players out there. So this guy, Destin, he's good at Blood Bowl. I'm a little nervous coming to his first match. He's playing as the Tomb King. Well, they're no longer called the Tomb Kings. They're called Khemri. Khemri is a Egyptian-themed undead Blood Bowl team. And remember, Blood Bowl's fantasy football. So it's like football, except for it's like orcs and undead and elves and stuff. And I'm playing lizard men. So my whole team are all a bunch of like lizard crocodile men running around. And he's got his undead. And his big thing are these tomb guardians they have. These giant undead dudes. They're like mummies that you just can't stop. They're like super powerful. But I tell you what, that had to be the most intense game of Blood Bowl I have ever played. With the amount of back and forth that went, everything was down to our decisions were so tight. Like we were both so good at it that it came down to just one mistake on each party. And I know a lot of people would say, "Oh, that game sucked because it was just down to like the last roll or something," right? But that's only because we both did the right things at the right time. So when you're playing with someone at your own level, it really may come down to a die roll, right? Because you're both doing sound tactics. But at the end of the day, I took my first win for the season. My lizard men, which I call them the Coqui Locos, the crazy cookies. And we took a win 3-1 over Destin's team, and I'm looking forward to more games of Blood Bowl this season.
Yeah, maybe you can make up for that one forfeiture.
Yeah, I'm hoping if I keep a good win streak, I can make it to the playoffs.
Best of luck to you in that, sir.
All right, what's your next game?
Last night, I played a game, and I'm not trying to overhype this, but this might be my favorite new-to-me game that I have played in some time. And it's a little bit of an older game. It was actually released in 2019, Chocolate Factory, designed by Matthew Dunstan and Brett J. Gilbert, published by Alley Cat Games. This is exactly what it sounds like. You're basically Willy Wonka. It's really cool. It gives me vibes of Furnace a little bit because you're building an engine and you're trying to make sure you're doing it in the right order. And also vibes of Viticulture because you're filling in orders like you would for wine, but now it's for candy. So the theme is so much fun. And honestly, even though the rule set is light, man, it is brain burning, but it's like candy that you're playing with. So it's like fun. And you don't think about that as much. I will admit these components are very nice. And even though they're wooden, I was salivating a little bit. These little chocolate bars and little wrapped candies. So the basics of the game.
It's almost like in Citadel, the little buttons look
look like
like Werther's candy.
Yep. So the game works is there's 6 rounds. They're days of the week. I guess, Willy Wonka. It's not literally Willy Wonka, but he gives the Oompa Loompas a day off at the end of the week, whatever. And as the game progresses, you get more coal. Coal is your currency, essentially, that you use to run the different parts of your factory, which we'll get to in a minute. But at the beginning of each day, you get your coal, and then you draft. So it drafts like a snake. You're going to draft an extra room to put in your factory or an extra machine that can do different things. And you're going to be drafting like an employee to work for you who will give you a special ability. But also, more importantly, whichever contractor you hire, that's the only business you can fulfill orders to publicly that week. So you're kind of planning the end of the turn when you're selling the candy before you even start. But anyway, once you draft these things, you get 3 turns. So you have this dual layer player board, but in the middle, it's only single layer. So you have these little crates that you're slotting in, and 4 of them can fit at a time. So you can slot in 3 crates per day. You can get 3, rounds going through. And a crate always comes in with a little cocoa bean. And then it's lined up with an action on the top and potentially on the bottom if you have upgraded it. And you can do different things to it. So you have to take it from a cocoa bean into a nib. And then from a cocoa nib, you can turn it into either a Kit Kat or a Hershey bar. And then from that, you could turn it into a red or yellow candy. And from that, you could turn it into a box of candy. So that's kind of the hierarchy.
I got to stop. I got to pause. I'm looking at the images on BGG of that setup, the exact setup you're describing. I am highly interested. This looks awesome. This almost like a conveyor belt factory feeling in the center. That top bottom action of scythe kind of feeling. The components in this thing. Keep going. What's up?
Yeah. So just because so the box of candy is the highest thing, right? But you don't necessarily want the highest thing just because it takes the longest to get to that. That may not be what the people want to buy. So you can either at the end of your turn, you do this 3 times as you're always going to slot in 3 beans, but you have to have enough coal to get these machines running. Anyway, once it drops off the end, or if it gets to a certain tile that is like a chute, you can go and put it in your storehouse. And whenever it goes to your storehouse, you can either keep it and sell it or throw it in the furnace and make more coal, if you can't use it. Because you can only sell to one of those public stores that anybody can sell to, but you also have some personal goals that you can sell to as well. So just because if you have a bunch of whole boxes of candy, if nobody wants to buy them, it's pointless to you. You got to meet the demand. And while you get direct points for fulfilling your orders in front of you, the public orders, you don't directly get points for it. It's based on other people. So just because I can fill an order 9 times, if the other people only filled it 1 time, then those other 7 times were worthless because I just need to be ahead of the next person for in-game scoring. Another cool mechanic is just because you're in second place on one of those public orders doesn't mean you're going to get some points for second place. You have to at least be halfway to the next person. So it's got to be kept competitive. It is so much fun. The theme is so much fun. I highly recommend it.
I am so hyped on your hype. You said you weren't going to hype it, but hype is the word for this one. But I don't even know if hype is the word because I think it's going to... Hype usually means, lots of conversation around it, very exciting, but never really pans out. It sounds like you're saying this thing is it. This is legit, not just hype. This is a game.
Yes, it's fun. Now it is on BGA. I haven't played a game of it yet, but I would definitely recommend it if you want to play it sometime, Carlos.
I'm going to have you teach me. Maybe after the next call-in show afterwards, we can do it on BGA.
That's a good idea. But I'm going to say, the fun of this game is running that conveyor belt and picking up the little pieces of chocolate. It's just a tactile experience.
I'm hearing some things in here that really get my attention, pique my interest. And what I'm hearing has to do with Smartphone Inc. Very similar to Smartphone Inc. I'm feeling the quality versus quantity decision, right? Because in Smartphone Inc., you have to decide, are you going to put out a bunch of cheap phones with little to no features for those countries that want cheap phones? Or are you going to put out those expensive iPhones with all the features, the 4G, the gaming, all that stuff, right? And then the other decision point in Smartphone Inc. has to do with supply versus demand, right? So if you do produce a lot of quantity, but someone else fills those demands before you get there, you're going to have an excess of that type of phone or item that you can't sell off. Is that Is that what I picked up on this too?
Not exactly that. So it's not like, inflation or whatever. But the idea is that just because you have a lot to sell, if nobody wants to buy it, what's the point? You have to meet the specific needs of the customers, kind of like in viticulture. You can have as much wine as you want, but if you don't have what those customers ordered, they ain't paying you for it.
Can the other players impact that? So in Smartphone Inc., the other players can go sell to them before I can sell to them, and now that demand is gone? Or is that order fulfillment my own?
So you have your own personal ones and then there's public ones. The public ones, you track how many you sell up to a maximum of 9. So it is possible, like let's say they sell 9 before you sell 9, then you can never overpass them in terms of how much money you're going to get. The person who does the second most, or if it's tied, whoever got there last, gets less money because the people wanted to buy from the other people more.
Okay, so there is kind of like that. There is some interaction where someone can go take your buyers from you, but you also are protected with your own private
something.
orders.
You just won't get as much.
Yeah, and that does remind me of my fun and enjoyment from Smartphone Inc.
Yeah, I could see some similarities.
But this is much better looking.
You played Furnace, you said, right?
Yes.
You know how whenever you're trying to figure out which card do I action now to make this the most efficient, that's how I feel with this game, because you always have to use the actions above and below the chocolate that you have, but you can start with the third one and then go to the first one and the second one, as long as you're doing it to the one that's underneath those actions. And sometimes you might have an action that's like, upgrade this chocolate and then move it back one. So it's like, oh, now I can do the
Very
second action
Furnace-like.
where yes, exactly.
Furnace-like on basic mode. Right?
Yes,
Whereas Furnace in advanced mode, you have to set that order in the beginning of the game, and it always stays the same.
Actually, it is kind of more like Furnace in advanced mode, because once I put that extra machine down, it is stuck there unless I replace it.
Oh, yeah.
But the chocolate can move between the machines. The machines stay in place.
Dude, that I don't know, I'll call it the Star Wars trench to the Death Star. Trench there in the middle of that. That's a good way to describe it for the folks at home. Y'all don't see the picture. Imagine a Star Wars trench to the Death Star, and inside of it are crates with ingredients for chocolate, cocoa, candies. It's sliding back and forth. That looks so cool. Great game.
Mm-hmm. What else you got on your radar?
I didn't play any other tabletop games. I didn't get any other tabletop games played. But I did play a digital implementation of a tabletop game that's in beta right now. And it's Blood Bowl 3. It's the new video game that's going to come out. And I believe it's going to be like PC for Steam and Xbox and PlayStation. They're in beta. I got access to a closed beta. And I was super excited because it has all the new rules based on the current rule set of Blood Bowl. And it looked amazing. It played smooth, like the graphics and everything just looked great. But there were some bugs in there that just made it practically unplayable. Like, even after the first match. I've never done a beta before. Like, I came in thinking, okay, so this means like I can play this video game. And then I get in there and find out, oh, wait, no, it jammed up. Now I got to go figure out why it jammed up. I got to, let them know why it jammed up and what I saw, send some screenshots, and then try again. So I was like, oh, man, I don't know if I want to do this beta stuff again.
So on BGA, they put out games in beta that you can play, and it's like, hey, this is in beta. Don't get mad at us. It's like Tapestry was in beta, and it had some bugs. And it's like, after a few games, I'm like, I'm going to wait till this is finished to play it anymore.
And that's what it was. Like, I pulled off this awesome move where I ended up, because Blood Bowl is very much a geometry game, a spatial game, where you're trying to control area. So I set up my guys around his guys to prevent his guys from being able to escape, and then I set up this beautiful trap, and I knock his guy off the pitch, so then the crowd takes him and beats him up, plop, 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 right? And then it just kind of jammed up. It didn't give me the result. It didn't resolve that. So I spent all this whole, almost like a quarter of a football game to set up this trap, to then have to reset it and start a whole new game. And I'm like, I don't know if I can do that.
You know why this is happening to you? Because you're ruining the board gaming hobby by going online, right?
Steven would tell you that. So that's it for my games played. That's it for our recent games played. Yeah, let's get into the news. Let's talk just a couple of topics for the news. We don't focus big on the news segments. It's not what we do. But there's always topics that we're interested in that I want to, bounce off other folks that I enjoy, just to get their thoughts on it too. And the first thing I wanted to talk about is a little bit of a downer, but I wanted to acknowledge it and hopefully get some thoughts and prayers from our community out to Jamie Keegi of Secret Cabal Gaming Podcast. He published his podcast this week, And I hadn't seen a podcast published since it was like late December, somewhere on right before Christmas. And before, he was dealing with some issues with health, but it seemed like everything was moving forward and fine. But apparently had a pretty bad turn, ended up in, he shared all this. There's nothing I'm not sharing that he hasn't shared. Ended up in the hospital, and they found a cancerous mass that has impacted his ability to breathe and talk. So, like, it really hits home, especially for me. You know, I've been DJing since I was like 17 years old. So this microphone has been in front of my face since I was a kid. My job is very much focused on the phone, talking to people. And I had a scare a couple of years ago where I struggled to breathe and be able to talk for long periods of time. I can't imagine what he's feeling. Not being able to do your job, right, and sustain your family, not just your hobby, which is talking about board gaming, but being able to contribute. So prayers to Jamie Keegan and his family. Hopefully y'all in the community will do the same, because that just stinks.
Yeah, whenever you told me about this earlier, I listen to Secret Cabal sometimes, but I don't think as religiously as you. And you were telling me, you know, he was having trouble breathing, and then they found out it was cancerous. It kind of freaked me out a little bit. I had COVID, and I've been having trouble breathing, and it's like, maybe I need to go get myself checked out. But just everybody out there, I mean, tons of people are probably having symptoms like that right now. So stay healthy out there.
Yeah, and that's what he talked about too, is the confusion. It took so long to figure something out because everyone's looking at the respiratory issues from like COVID. Is it this? Is it this? But what they didn't see was the mass that was stopping his left lung from working.
That's crazy.
That's crazy. Folks, I know a lot of us are afraid to get out there and get checked up, especially us guys. We tend to be that way. Yep. You know, get out there and get checked, stay healthy, because we got games we want to play with you.
For sure. Our thoughts are with him. We'll bring it to a slightly lighter piece of news, if you don't mind. I know you saw this as well, the announcement of the new Stonemaier game. I'm a big Stonemaier fanboy. I think I've made that pretty public. Anytime they release a new game, I get excited and get ready to start spending money. So I try to watch at least the beginning of Jamie Stegmaier's livecast every week before I have to go off and teach a class. And so I see the livecast coming up. He's got an eye patch on, and he's holding this box with like a pirate, and then like right as it started, my student was walking in, so I had to click off. And I'm thinking during class, don't tell my boss about like, what is this game going to be about, you know? And then after my student leaves, 50 minutes later, I go back and see, and it's like, Libertalia, I've heard that name before. I've never played it. And so it looks like this is kind of a little bit more of a, I don't want to say like family friendly art style, but it's not as grungy, you know? But I have to admit, I'm a little disappointed. Even though I've never played the original game, I much prefer original content. Like Rolling Realms, I didn't play it. Again, so to be fair, I haven't played it. But just the fact that it was like recycling other mechanics didn't make me super excited. You've played the original game, right, Carlos?
No, I have not.
Oh.
This one has been on my list, my desire list for a long time, just because of the pirate theme. I like pirate games, and there are not a lot of good pirate games out there. But once it went out of print, I mean, it's a 10-year-old game. Once it went out of print and it wasn't being reprinted, I couldn't find it. Armada had it on their shelf for a while at the beginning, and I just couldn't pull the trigger. Then it disappeared, and I was like, oh, I wish I would have just pulled the trigger on it, because I expected it to reprint, right? Like, oh, it's older. We'll get a reprint, an updated version, and it never happened.
Well, that's Fassel's rule. If a game's good enough, it'll come back in, and it's happening a decade later. But
I think I would have been happier with the original theme. Right, the art and style that comes out of Stonemaier games is gorgeous. Right, this makes me feel like Tapestry, kind of a feeling like I could see these ships floating around on the board of Tapestry, if you know what I mean. Like the islands and the maps that you see on the Tapestry map boards. So it's beautiful. But I coming from Puerto Rico, you know, growing up next to a fort there, and we got a fort here in Tampa, Fort DeSoto. We, going to St. Augustine and seeing those forts. I've been a Buccaneer, right? Pirates are my thing. Like, I think I would be happier if it was just straight up pirates. It didn't have to be flying pirates. But I'm still excited to get this one played, because from what I understand, it's not just a family-friendly theme or imagery that you're seeing there. It's supposed to be a family-friendly game. And I'm really much more, maybe as I'm getting older and it's getting tougher, and like I really want to focus my mental energy on the good, tough games. I don't want all of my games to be difficult to learn and play. I want some good, fun, easy games like the Zombie Kids of the world and the Seven Wonders Architects. I need some light, easy fun. And if this can fill that, have a pirate-ish theme, I'm in.
And also, I really like this, and I feel like some people roll their eyes about this. I really like the political correctness that board gamers have been trying to come about. One of the things he mentioned in the stream is like, in the old version of the game, there was a card that was like a slave. He's like, we don't want to have anything to do with slavery, so now it's a prisoner. I was actually playing the second edition of Great Western Trail last night, and if you've played the first version, they were teepees.
With the teepees?
Yeah, and it's like, at first thought, I'm white, I have privilege, sorry, that's unfortunately, it's like that, but I don't think about it. And I'm like, oh yeah, we're just collecting teepees. And my friend was like, think about it. You're a cowboy. You march through. Whenever you're done, the teepees are gone. What do you think that's representing? And so now it's like bandits that you're going and fight instead of teepees. So it's little things like that just to help people be more included, with their ethnicity and heritage. I think that's a step in the right direction, even though so many people are going to call like, oh, quit being a social justice warrior or whatever. I love that the board gaming industry is becoming more and more inclusive and thinking of little things like that might be a little thing to me who hasn't had to deal with stuff like that, but it's a big deal to other people. And I think that's kind of like the theme of board gaming, just like bringing people together.
And I'm totally on board, especially when it's something as simple that you can do, like a simple quick fix, and we're not playing something that is regarding accuracy for history, right? We're not doing a recreation of a historical event, right? So we're not whitewashing history here because this has nothing to do with history. So there's no need to go there, right? There's no need to push that agenda. I think for me, one of the things that really stood out was the designer's name. I mean, I've just been on this Paolo Mori trip without even knowing it, right? Like Blitzkrieg and Caesar ! And Ethnos has always been one game that comes out at regular game days. And I'm not one that always looks at the designer's name when I play games. I know the games I like. And then when you and I started talking more about looking at a designer's body of work, and so I started looking at my favorite designers, Paolo being one of them, and I realized, oh wow, Paolo is the designer for Libertalia. Like, I had no idea. Like, I loved the games that I played from Paolo.
It's a pity. I feel like the big designers, Stegmaier, Eric Lang, Uwe, all those, if a game is one of their games, but not at all that Paolo Mori's a smaller designer, but for whatever reason, a lot of time they don't get recognition. You kind of look at the publishers like, oh, I see the logo. It's a Stronghold game or something, but I want to try to make more of an effort to notice those things because it's just a name on a box, but I know that they did probably years or maybe more than that of work to get it to the table. So I'm glad you brought that up.
And I think it has to do with the relationship with the designers and the publisher, right? So if some designers tend to work with a specific publisher on a regular basis, where Paolo is all over the place. He's got the Ethnos with Simon. He's got PSC Games. He's doing the Blitzkrieg and the Rome, and then this is Stonemaier. So you're not seeing the same production team putting that game out, so it doesn't look like the last one. So like it doesn't instantly trigger, oh, that's a Paolo game. It looks like one. It feels like one because he's going from different designer to designer.
Right. And then, I mean, don't get me wrong. This is nothing against Jamie Stegmaier that I'm saying, oh, we're thinking of him and not others. But he puts in the work, man. He has such a good relationship with his patrons, with his weekly live cast, his YouTube channel, his newsletters, deservedly so. We know Jamie Stegmaier, and I think maybe other designers could take a lesson from his handbook of that kind of marketing yourself aspect.
Well, and that's what makes me be a champion, right? A subscribed champion. That's
Same.
What makes me buy games from him is more of supporting the company, him and the company. He has the face of the company, than buying a game that I'm going to play a ton of times. I might play it a few times and put it on the shelf, but I'm going to feel good knowing that I supported a real person and a real group of people who are benefiting from that game being on my shelf. Mm-hmm. Which is why I feel no pity for Simon because I didn't buy into their $600 Marvel Zombies setup because there's no face there that I'm seeing.
One of the coolest things, and I know we're getting off topic here, but I think this is a good talk.
It's what we do. It's how we podcast.
So Stegmaier has a dedicated Facebook group for each of his games, and I'm in several of them. And me or someone else might have a question about the game or some errata or something, and they'll ask it. And Stegmaier himself will answer the question like a minute later. Like, how cool is that? You can go directly to the designer, and he'll tell you, oh, no, you're doing this wrong, or yes, you're doing that right. That's so cool.
He says it, too. Tag my name. Put at my name if you have a question about the game, and I will answer you. I mean, you can't buy that service from anyone. And that's the big guy at the company. So, Libertalia, looking forward to it. I think the last bit of news I wanted to hit on was Rob brought this up. We were going to talk about it on the call-in show. But Portal Games has come out with an online magazine. And it's a pretty nice online magazine. We're talking like 40-something pages.
Yeah,
So this
42
is
pages. I'm trying to pull it up here.
Did you pull it up?
Yeah.
I'm looking. I downloaded this thing for my tablet so I can flip through it like a magazine. But Rob's already read about half of it, and he's got nothing but great things to say about this magazine. It's supposed to be published monthly now. It's going to be published by Portal Games, but it's okay. Although you're going to see a lot of Portal Games content and advertising in there. Portal Games, Ignacy isn't just a designer and a game publisher. He's also the distributor for many other board game companies in Poland, so in that European area. So you're going to see content that I've seen so far in here about stuff that is not specific to Portal Games. So so far it looks to be free. There's no negatives that I can see of subscribing and checking this thing out.
This looks pretty cool, man. I mean, whenever I think of a magazine, I'm thinking back to the 90s, it was like Nintendo Power, stuff like that. It seems so old school, but I think that people will be drawn to this. I'm looking through it. There's design diaries. Each month they have a photo contest. You take a picture of you gaming. You could win $50 on gift card to Portal. This is pretty cool. I'm digging it.
I totally am. And a lot of it has to do with my love for this hobby extends beyond just the playing of the game. That's probably why we're here right now. I love to go deeper and talk about the games and kind of go into the strategies of the game and the people around the game more than just playing the game.
Oh, man. Carlos, don't go to the last page. There's a quiz. Do you want to take this quiz?
What kind of quiz are we talking about?
Okay, here's the first one. I'm not going to go for the first one because we don't have time for all of them. What is Eric Lang's favorite animal?
Oh, gosh.
Oh, sorry. There's choices. A fox, A fox, B panda, C cat, or D cow.
Fox.
Try again.
Oh, wow. Panda?
That's correct.
Really?
Have you played Imperial Settlers?
I have.
In
Robert
Imperial
loves
Settlers,
it.
to draw a card, you must A, spend 2 workers, B, spend 1 worker and a resource, C, exhaust any card on your table, or D, exhaust any action type card on your table.
Spend a worker.
Spend 1 worker and 1 resource, is that what you're saying? Or spend 2 workers?
No, 1 worker, 1 resource.
Wrong.
Oh, man. See, Rob's more into it. I like Empires of the North. It's a lot less spending stuff in Empire of the North. What's the answer?
Spend 2 workers.
2 workers. Okay. I remember workers being a part of getting cards, but 2 sounds really expensive.
Yeah. Do you want to keep going through this or you want to move on?
No, let the folks at home find it before we spoil it for them. So that's the kind of content you're going to find in the magazine, folks. And so Robert recommends it. He's not able to make it today into this little quick, appetizer of a podcast that we're doing here because we're not going real deep. Or Mitch and I. So I'll recommend it on Rob's behalf. The Portal Games, I think they call it the
Moloch Monthly.
Moloch Monthly. Yep.
Man, they have this design
Polish
diary
is not my first language.
For Gutenberg. I've been really looking forward to that one. These pictures look amazing.
The pictures look awesome, don't they?
Dude, just that. The pictures with those what's it called? Like the printing press type tiles, you know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
Interchangeable tiles. That makes me want to buy it just right there. That is so cool.
I think it's the whole purpose of this digital magazine.
Yeah, it's doing its job. I'm about to be seeing if I can get my hands on a copy of that.
All right, so now we're to our main topic, and this is going to be the discussion topic for this week. We're going to talk about what makes for a great board game night.
Yeah, so whenever you're approaching this topic, Carlos, I know you do it more in public. I'm approaching it from at my house, Friday night or whatever. From what perspective are you approaching this topic?
Well, it used to be at my house. I used to do a lot of gaming at my house, but the groups just kept getting bigger and bigger, so we started moving it towards the public space.
You don't have to brag,
get a lot of
Carlos.
comments. But it's the comments, man. I do a game night. I'd invite a few people, and then I get 7 comments from 7 different people saying, where was my invite? And I feel terrible.
That's the price you got to pay getting famous, man.
But I'm a very open person, so I'll invite them all to my house, and then it becomes tight. There's not enough room. So it just became a public space is the best way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I've said this before on the podcast, but like, I was a random yoo-hoo. You invited me over to your house to play.
Listen, brother, don't think I didn't tell the wife, hey, keep an eye on this guy. I'm not too sure about him. I've only met him online. If something goes down, you know the codes to the safe. Make stuff happen.
So for me, I would say the first step in having a good game night is, so I have a group chat with my core group. There's a lot of people I game with, but I keep my group chat slimmed down to the people I actually know are likely to come. And sometimes even a week before the game that's going to be happening, I'm starting to try to organize stuff because people are busy and they're also flaky. And like, I don't want to plan a game night and like nobody shows up. So I might text them a week ahead of time. A couple days later, check in. I'm constantly checking in with them. I'm the dad. I'm the teacher of the group. Find out what time they're going to get there. Making sure they don't have anything the next day so that we don't have to cut it off too early. Anything like that. Just basically recruiting and being that organizer, for me, is my first step. For you, like I said, you're famous. You just got to post, hey, I'll be here, and people show up, huh?
That's what Robert's for. I don't do the executive function stuff well. That's not how my brain works. It doesn't do that executive function stuff, which is why I've been glad hanging out with you doing this podcast, having someone to pop in and kind of remind us, hey, we're getting to that date where we got to get something recorded is really helpful because I will fly by that date, completely forget. I'm more of hype driving, right? Like I'm all about what are we going to play? What's that big thing we want to play, right? And I'm going to do things like send out maybe articles about it or some strategy thing I saw or a video that I saw that I liked about it. So instead of like talking about the specific date, time, what we're playing, how we're playing it, who's bringing what snacks type stuff, I'm more of like, did you see this cool video that talked about that game? Oh man, this review about that game was great, right? Kind of get people excited, salivating, like I want to play that too, and then counting on that hype to be sufficient to drive the attendance.
That makes sense. I think you're lucky to have something like Your Turn in your area where they have such a massive library. For us, it's just, we have a friendly local gaming store with a small library, but mostly we're playing just stuff that's in our collection. So, yeah, if we get a new game in, I'll be, hey, I'll drop it in the group chat. I got this new game in. I'm really looking forward to play it to kind of drive that hype, but we're a little bit more limited. So you guys are lucky out there in Tampa. Your Turn sounds like an awesome resource to have.
Well, even Armada, their library is nowhere near the size of Your Turns, but they focus their library on product that's in stock. So and that's how we met Chris at the last game day. It's just some random guy named Chris who wanted to buy the Tyrants of the Underdark, but wanted to try it first. He went to Armada, pulled it from the library to try it first. So yes, we are blessed in Tampa to have a great group of stores to help us and provide for us games to play. But the other part of a good game day is that selection, right? So even when I host at home, a big part of what I've been doing over the last decade has been building a solid collection and library of games. This just, anyone in my group can ask for any one of these games, and for the most part, I am totally comfortable with bringing it in and letting them use it, or even letting them pick it up and take it with them and bringing it back. I know I've always said in everything in life, don't loan it out if you're not willing to lose it, because, and not like lose it and then ask them for it every time you see them type lose it. Like if you're loaning it out, just expect and understand this may be gone forever. Is it worth ruining friendships for? Right.
So what
that's
you're saying,
how I look at it.
The podcast microphone that Rob borrowed is never coming back, is what you're saying.
Well, he came to record with us that day, right? He's like, hey, where's my laptop? I said, bro, I put it in that kit for you that you took home. A laptop, mouse, very expensive microphone, very expensive headsets, all that, right? This nice kit. And he's like, oh, and checks with his wife. Oh, it's in the tub. I'm like, I'm what?
Well, it wasn't there when his house flooded, right?
He said it's in the tub because that was a place where they started putting stuff while they're working on the floors and the remodeling. I'm like, oh, okay. So you're right. Yeah, that's an example.
Yeah, so anyway, to get us a little bit back on topic, regarding game selection, so it's a little bit different, I guess, in the home with game selection. That's part of, I guess, my pre-planning process. I'd like to have a hard number of who's coming, so, my collection is going to be here, but if other people are bringing games, that they bring games that can fit all those players. So like last night, we were playing, we knew we'd have 5 people. So my buddy said, okay, I brought as many 5-player games or more that I could fit into my bag. Because, if you have 5 players and you only have games that play up to 4,
that's
it's
a
not going to
hard
be
number too. That is a hard number.
And of course, unless it's lighter games or party games, the more people you get, the more stressful those games are going to be, a 6-player viticulture. So it's having those options. Like last night we knew we'd have 4 people, and then one person was going to be there a little bit later. So we said, we knew we wanted to play the new edition of Great Western Trail. We played that first. Took several hours because 2 of the people were new to it. And then we had 5 people, and it's like, do we really now want to go into a heavy 5-player game after we just got out of a heavy 4-player game? So it's like, no, let's play Welcome 2. We can play that at 5 players. Let's play King of Tokyo. So I think that's an important thing, is that you're kind of switching it up a little bit. We kind of have a palate cleanser between the really heavy games. And not only that, but it's like, okay, maybe after this one, someone's going to get tired and leave. We can have less players. Not that I don't want anybody who's listening that plays with me, not that I don't want you there, but it is easier to get through games at a lower player count sometimes.
Right. 5 is a tough number. When it reaches 5, I start stressing out because the amount of quality games that I have at 5 that can be played in an evening, right, in that limited space of time,
is
small. I don't know. English is not my first language. Trademark Beans and Dice.
Yeah,
so like having
Stonemar's really good at
4 is good. 3 is nice.
Stonemar's really good at accommodating larger player counts. With the exception of maybe Viticulture, their games at larger player counts generally, it doesn't take a crazy amount of extra time to play whenever you add more players in it. Like Red Rising, that's quick. Of course, it's going to be a little bit longer, but it's quick regardless of player count. Tapestry and Scythe can get a little bit long with more players, but not crazily so. So I respect Stonemaier for that. And, one of his part of his mission statement, Jamie, is like, we want it to be quick turns, and we want it to be able to play lots of people so that you can be thinking of your next turn. When it gets to you, you just do it real quick, then the next person goes. I really like that, and it helps you get more games at the table.
And that's what I love about his design style and philosophy, is that one action next type feeling. I love that. The problem is the way we game in my house, there's a lot of socializing in between. So most people really aren't thinking about their next turn. We're chit-chatting, we're hanging out, we're popping jokes at each other, about each other, and then it's my turn. Now I got to think. Right? So we don't do it right.
That doesn't fly with me. We've talked about this before. If you want to socialize, we can socialize before the game or after the game, not during the game. So literally, I'm like the police. If someone is on their phone, it better not be their turn. And when it gets to them, they better play immediately. If you're on your phone off turn and you don't know what you're doing, I will literally murder you. I've put that threat out there. Last night, I said it to Connor. I said, you better know what you're doing to be on your phone right now. So I still have fun. I don't know if they do, because they're basically in detention whenever they're playing games. But
I'm with you on that. That to me is like the etiquette piece, and I guess that's another piece of good game night, the etiquette. Right, understanding that you've come into an agreement. What do they call that? What is is it Bonacore? They call it the or Engelstein. It's the circle of the magic circle. You're in the magic circle, right? And in this magic circle, we've all agreed to play by these set of rules for this thing, this game, whatever it is we're doing here. It's our magic circle. People can ruin that, right, by not abiding by just the basic rules of the magic circle, which is, if you're playing the game, play the game. Don't make us wait for you because you want to be on your phone socializing. If you're going to touch your phone, you better know what you're going to do next and do it immediately on that turn. I'll watch you do it twice, but after that, I'm with you. Like, someone's getting taken out.
And I think it's about playing with like-minded people. Like, I've had a friend over. She's played games with us a couple of times, but she's not a gamer. She's coming over to hang out with us, right? And so she's in a different mindset. I remember. First of all, it's probably my fault. I know whenever I have someone over like that, I shouldn't be playing heavy games. But it was right after I got Ankh. So we played Ankh. And she didn't understand.
Help yourself. And I knew while you're setting it up, you were thinking about it. I bet you were thinking about it while you were setting up, and you still did it.
Yeah. So like I said, it's kind of on me. But she wasn't fully understanding. And to her, I mean, for me, board game. I'm serious about board games, right? And people outside of the gaming hobby probably don't understand that. Like, oh, he's just playing Monopoly, So it's like she didn't understand something, and I was explaining to her, and she's like, we were doing a combat, and you play cards face down. She's like, I'm just going to look at his card and see what he's playing. I'm like, no, do not do that. You're messing with the integrity of the game. And she did it anyway. I was so angry, and she could not understand why I was so angry. It's just like we were on two different wavelengths. I was like, I'm about to kick you out of my house. I am never inviting you to a game night again. Like, I got livid.
You've broken the magic circle.
Yes. And again, it was my fault. And she just was To her, that wasn't a big deal. But to me, it was. And so I think setting those expectations, and if people aren't willing to abide by those, then don't play a game that requires those expectations. Play Codenames or something.
Right. Now you know that that's someone you need to play light things.
Or nothing with... Sorry. I just got a little bit angry again about it.
It gets us out of our topic, but I've taken games to work to play with teams. Because I really do believe playing games with people lets you see the real people. Like, it's hard to hide your real self when you're competing for something.
Right.
You figure out who cheats. You figure out who's good at lying, bluffing. You figure out who the real thinkers are, like people who shock you. Like, I had no idea you could think like that to that level, right? Strategy, deep, wise, long-term stuff. So you're right. Playing games with people lets you see the real people. And
so... it makes me think of whenever I got to interview Jamie Stegmaier, we asked him, could you somehow pick between your favorite games, like they're your favorite children, right? And he said, it really depends on who I'm playing with. And it really made me start thinking, I have games that I enjoy, but if you don't enjoy it, or if we're not in the same mindset...
the people across the table from you.
Right, exactly. Then... that's probably not going to be an enjoyable experience. So the game is only as fun as the people you're interacting with.
The magic circle you're in.
Right, right.
I love Clash of Cultures, but if I play with Rob, I'm going to watch him pout the whole time. I'm not going to have fun.
Right. So going kind of back to our topic, one of the things I do to try to foster that magic circle is, so this is an event for me, whenever this happens at my house once a week. Before, the whole house got to be spotless. I know that maybe that's not important to other people, but we clean house the day before. And my family hates it. It's like, we got to clean because y'all are playing board games. It's like,
it's
are
funny,
you really fussy at me right now because I'm trying to clean the house?
When I do that, my kids will say to me, who's coming over?
Exactly. As soon as I tell them to start cleaning, they're like, oh, who's coming? It's like, can our house just be clean? Apparently not. The answer is no, it can't be.
This is the tough life of being parents of young children. It is not easy, folks.
So anyway, so the house is clean, and then I have like snacks, finger foods. Then between games, we can order food. And between games, we'll eat that food. If the food gets delivered mid-game, I'll go answer the door, I put it down, and I'll go sit down at the table. It might make them take their turns quicker if they smell the food in the other room. I know you're not going to agree with me on this, Carlos.
You see me shaking my head like you can even see it on camera. Yeah, we're on Skype just talking to each other. Yeah. No, the food is key. You can't go to war on an empty stomach. I don't know who said that, but someone said it. It could have been Sherman. I don't know.
Don't know.
But you can't go to war on an empty stomach. So when the food gets here, we take that last round, we kind of pause, clean up a little bit, and then go eat. Now we chit-chat, we hang out.
I have made a couple of concessions, like if we ordered food late and it took a while to get there, sometimes you can take a bite when it's not your turn. You don't have to wait to the end of the game. I'm telling you, I'm a dictator in this. I'm the one who, like, literally, the second your turn ends, I'm telling the next person, hey, it's your turn. So, like, I'm probably not fun at all to be around whenever we're gaming, but how else are you going to play 7 games in one night,
And that's a difference. I'm like, one game, one night, we have a good time, and maybe a filler. We might get a filler and one main game in. You and I are not the same.
Not at all.
Not the same.
So me and some friends are working through the Gloomhaven campaign, and one day we were trying to set up a day, and they were like, "Yeah, I can be there from this time, and I got to leave by this time." And I'm like, "We're only gonna get like 3 scenarios in that time frame. Like that's not enough." And they all agreed. To you, I think that would have been like, "Wow, that's a lot," but. No, we got to get in at least 4 games in a night for me to consider it a real game night. Otherwise, we're just messing around.
You keep pushing, you keep rocking. Next thing you talked about food, right? I didn't get the good chime into my food piece.
Sorry.
I am big on game nights have to have food. So usually at your turn there's a plentiful supply of food, right? So everybody can get their own. But like at Armada, I'll tend to buy a couple pies of pizza. If it's like midday, like between breakfast and lunch, because we usually start around noon. So I'm sure people have already had breakfast, but they're not ready for lunch, and we're getting into a game. That's a couple, 3 hours before we actually get to stop for food, to actually have to go somewhere to get food or order food. So I'll grab a couple pies from the pizza shop that's in the same plaza, have them out there for everyone to enjoy, because it's just, for me, food and gaming go together, and it's that social aspect, and it's also that piece of saying, hey, thank you for being here. Right? Thanks for bringing games. There are people who are bringing their own games and teaching others, and that's big. To me, having a community of folks who are willing to bring their games in and bring in other people to teach them how to play. If I can give you a slice of pizza or something to go with it, or at the house, right? When they're in my home, I stock the house full of beer, sodas, which we don't really drink sodas here, but we'll stock them for when people come over. I'll order pizza, and provide food as much as I can as a thank you for coming to play games with me.
Yeah, I like that. And sometimes, so during the school year, usually I'm a teacher. We're most commonly playing on Friday nights, and so literally the second I get home, I say, "Hey guys, come on over." So I don't have time to cook during the school year. But if we're playing during summer on the weekend, I'll usually try to cook ahead of time and have that, so we don't even have to worry about stopping. Get here, eat, then we play. But if we're doing it on a work night, if I'm cooking something, that means we're not playing during that time. So I'm all about maximizing, and that. So we're talking about selection of food. I live in a small town. We don't have a lot of options. So whenever we're ordering, we're pretty much always going to be ordering from like one of three places. So that helps as well. We don't have to spend time debating over where we're going to order. We pretty much order the same thing. We rotate. This week is that. Oh, next week, I guess it's going to be the other place. So that's one benefit to being in a small town for us. And I want to use that segue to talk about selection of games. So once we've gotten to the point where we have our selection for player count and we have our selection for type of game we're playing, we've kind of informally developed this method of like, we'll kind of go around the table taking turns between games. And what we'll do is one person will say, okay, here are 4 or 5 games that I'm willing to play. And then the other people pick from that list. It helps us narrow down, because if you're looking at a wall of hundreds of games and you're trying to get 5 people to agree on something, it's never going to happen. So one person, it's like their turn to narrow it down. And then the other people vote between those multiple choice. And it helps the flow between games a little bit better.
I don't know. We've never, and maybe this is the part that I'm the jerk. Like AITA, am I the? I tend to pick the game, right? Like I'm gonna host. I'm gonna provide pizza. I'm gonna provide beer, right? You're coming to my house, but it usually is very much gonna be a game I want to play, like something I want to get in. And for those that don't want to come and play because they don't like that game, that's fine with me. I'll find someone else to take your seat. It might be Clash of Cultures, it might be Brass, it might be any other game that I want to play, but you're welcome to come to my house. I'll provide you beer, food, drinks, and a place to hang out, but we're playing what I want to play. Filler-wise, I don't care what you pick.
I guess, we all kind of have the right of veto. If everybody disagrees with your pick, yeah, we're not going to do it. But if you're the one guy that didn't want to play, like, even if it's me, it's my house, and like everybody else in the group wants to play this game, I'll be like, guys, come on, can we please do something else? Like, no, we all want to do it. It's like, okay, it's a democracy. So I guess you're a dictator. I'm a democracy, but you're like more of a benevolent dictator, and I'm like more of a totalitarian president or something. I don't know.
This all very much sounds like tech trees inside of Clash of Cultures, different types of government there.
Yeah. So my last note for a good game night, this may not apply to everybody, but you and I, we're both dads, right? I love my kids to death, but whenever we're playing board games, they need to be occupied, right? So a couple things. So I have friends of a similar age. They also have kids. And Jeremy, if you're listening, there's no offense to you, but whenever other friends have kids that are the same age as my kids, I love that they come because they keep each other occupied. If they're a different age, it doesn't help as much. Like Jeremy, I know your kid is a bit younger than mine, so they don't entertain as well. But another thing, so like my kids have limited stream time. They literally have to set a timer on Alexa whenever they're getting on electronics. And so I try to make them save those for later in the day whenever dad's playing games. They're just like, yeah, go use all your time right now so I can focus on my game. What do you do to keep your kids entertained without just locking them in a room while you're playing?
We're more of a family of, and we're, COVID really messed a lot of this up. We're kind of getting back to it. With the first 2 kids, it was always very much no screen time during weeknights. Like no video games, no TV, nothing. If it's a school night, it's not happening. I don't want your mind thinking about it. And COVID really messed that all up. So the third child, the third boy, he's on a different level. It's very limited screen time on those weeknights. So when like the buddy comes over on Thursday night to game or something and he brings the kid, it's like open door, go have fun. And because of that, they leave me alone, right? What's cool about Rob, and probably why Rob and I have been friends for so many years, is because we, for a while there, when we had our 3 kids, actually when we had 1 kid each, they were the same age. When we had 2 kids, they were off by maybe less than a year. So now we each had 2 kids, so the middle children are off by less than a year. And then the third kids are off by less than a year. So I feel like we've always had kids in generally the same age bracket. So we're always doing the same things together. So it works out where the wives talk, the kids pair up and entertain each other. And I really don't have to think about it. I let it go. They just, go. But now
always
we're coming
helps.
back to the lockdown, coming off the lockdown and stuff. I'm going to have to put that foot down and say no screen time. And then that allowance of screen time, like you're talking about, is that incentive to go hide in the corner and do your screen time because until Poppy's done, I get to do this.
Right. Yeah. And again, I don't want to lose listeners. We have some younger folks out there that don't have kids, but I know there's some people out there that you struggle with that as well. And don't get me wrong, I love my kids. I love to play games with them. I was just playing King of Tokyo with them the other day, and they have still beaten me every time. But whenever my friends are here and I want to play something a little bit heavier, I like them being occupied if possible.
Yep, I don't bring them to the table as often. Rob and I will do a game with the kids separately and specifically, like planned, but no, not. We don't bring them around here because it just takes away from the magic circle.
Yeah,
being able to let everything else fall away.
Magic Circle should be the title of this segment, apparently. But I like it. It's so apt. It's right. So yeah, that's kind of the last of my.
You just wrote the title for the show.
That's kind of the end of my tips for a perfect game night. And like I said, you and I are very different. So I'd like to hear what people's thoughts are. They could have a completely different environment from ours. But yeah, I can respect the way you guys play. That doesn't mean I'll be happy whenever we're playing at Sobo if I have to tell you 50 times to take your turn, Rob. But
see, I recognize my weaknesses, and I find ways and tools and mechanisms to mitigate them, such as I bring my little journal with me. And I take a whole page, and this is the game we're playing, and I jot notes down on things I want to do. And then as we get real tactical in our turns, I'm jotting down what I want to do next. So that when it is my turn, I can look right at it and say, all right, here's what I'm doing next. Oh, that's not available? Well, that's the thing that I was going to do next to it. Okay, that's what I'm doing. I don't have to rethink anything. I have my list and I go. So I think we'll be fine.
So the thing is, I've actually realized almost the more efficient you are, it can become less efficient because the second my turn is over, I'm planning my next turn. If it's multiple people, I know my turn several turns before, unless it's something crazy like Four Gardens that you can't plan out. And so sometimes the person previously to me will finish, and literally a second later, my turn is done. It's like, blah, done. And people won't even know that my turn is over because it happens so fast, and then it just causes more of a slowdown. But I think that's why I feel the need to always be like, hey, your turn, your turn, your turn.
Well, see, I have a touching rule. Like I tell people, literally touch me when it's my turn. Like I need you to slap my shoulder. I have a friend that does that.
Yeah.
Like otherwise, I'm not going to tell it was you win because I'm still processing all of my things, and in my mind, I'm working on stuff. I will not recognize that you took your turn, especially if you're a quick turn taker. So punch me in the shoulder is what I say.
I will remember that whenever I see you next month.
So now let's talk about let's end off the show with just a little bit about what we have coming up. Kind of set some expectations for the folks and let y'all know what we're doing. I'll lead us off with of course, the call-in show every Thursday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, 813-618-7099. Even if you are not watching the show, you can call in and get through on the phone line. You get in and just talk to us about what you've been up to. We'll tell you what the current topic is and who we're talking to, and just tell us what you got going on. So just call in, 813-618-7099, Thursday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah, and don't wait to call in. I waited a few minutes on Thursday, and I almost didn't get in before the time. That's how much fun you guys were having chatting with people. So
it was like 9:59. That was a great I actually posted that one as a podcast audio version because I really enjoyed the conversation we had that night.
Oh, cool. I didn't realize that.
Wayne did a great job.
Southern Board Game Festival, Lafayette, Louisiana, March 19th through 20th. It's a small con. We're a small town. It's only happened 3 years so far because of COVID. This would be, I think, our 5th year now. This year, there's going to be a lot of just open play. We have some demos you can sign up for once you get your badge. There's a lot of play-to-win games, meaning if you play this game one time, if you check it out from the library and play it, they put your name in a hat, and they pick the names, and you win that game. There's a lot of those. We usually have tournaments and some other events going on. For this year, we're just focusing on having a con. For 2 years, we've planned and couldn't have it. So even though I'd like to have some of those extra events happening, the guy in charge, he's just like, guys, let's just have a con and have fun and not overcomplicate it because people just want to get together and play games again, right? So I think it's 300 total badges, the max that they'll sell to. So not super big, kind of about the size of a Dice Tower retreat. And I know, they've already sold hundreds of them. So should have a good turnout. Carlos and Rob are coming down. And
Daniel from your turn.
Yeah, Dan's
Dan
going to come.
Erzik.
I'll be there.
He heard about it yesterday and started pinging me and asking me, hey, what's going on with this thing? I gave him my logistics, and next thing I know, he's got a message out to me. All right, I booked flights, hotel, and bought my badges.
That's awesome.
And Rob's like, hey, Dan mentioned he wants to come with. I'm like, it's too late. He already bought everything.
And it's pretty cheap. I think it's $40 for the 2-day badge. It doesn't go all night. It ends at 11 because we're at a university that closes at 11. But we're working on trying to get some unofficial offsite gaming. Also, if you're in town, on Friday night, we're trying to have an unofficial kind of launch party. Not like public, but if you guys reach out, we can get the information on that. And make it into a little bit more of an all weekend thing.
Yeah, join us on the Discord, the Beans and Dice Discord. Join us on the Beans and Dice Facebook. We're talking about it there in the Facebook community for Beans and Dice. And join that community if you want to chat about and bring up in there. If you're willing to come, let us know there so we can get you the details.
For sure. And I'm demoing Ankh and Lost Ruins of Arnak, but there's a lot of other games you can sign up for. Those go pretty quickly. That was something else I was
took a seat for Ankh.
Yeah. Yes.
I took a seat for Ankh.
Even though it's sitting behind you and you just haven't played it on your own. And you wouldn't play it with me at the retreat either. Of course, you're going to wait until it's a limited amount of seats, and then you're going to dive into it.
I didn't realize you knew how to play it then.
Well, yeah.
Okay, because it was newer then at the time. It was still newer. Mm-hmm. So it had just released, I guess, retail released.
Yeah, I got it at Gen Con, so it was a couple months before. But yeah, the retail release wasn't out until right before that, I think.
Well, I'm in the Learn Ankh. Our game day, our monthly game day we have going on is going to be pushed back. Again, we lied. I think each month lately we've been
Saturday.
lying. It's going to be the 8th Saturday of February. We're going to do it on the 3rd Saturday this time. So the way February ended up, the 12th is not only Valentine's Day, but it's also, from my understanding, Super Bowl weekend or something. Sports people chime in. That's your thing. So we're going to push it back to the 19th of February is going to be our Saturday game day, and it's going to be at your turn for those of you in the Tampa Bay area, Wesley Chapel, Zephyr Hills, Newport Richie. I think that's pretty central to all those locations. It's Zephyr Hills location at your turn. So that'll be Saturday at 11 a.m. they open up, game day at your turn. And then finally, with regards to the podcast and what we're doing here, Mitchell, myself, and Robert got together and we talked about kind of what are we going to do with this? What have we enjoyed doing? And what we found is, what I found is I really enjoy having these deeper conversations about a very specific topic or a game, and I want to do more of that. So what we're going to try to do is at least once a month, out of the one of two, every other Sunday, one of those Sundays, we're going to get into a deep conversation. And it could be anything like the strategy tips that we did for Pan Am. We're going to do that for other games. And so if you have suggestions for games that you want us to play a lot, come up with some strategy tips or what we found, our strategy, analysis that we saw. We're going to provide that to you once a month. We're going to do things like evaluate the book of design work that one designer has. Pick a designer and go through all their games and talk about the ones that we've played, that we enjoyed, that we didn't enjoy, some of the themes that we see that cross all the different games, and provide that deeper conversation. So the first one that we plan on.
Yeah, I was just going to ask if you wanted to spoil them or not. The first one, it rhymes with Brass Birmingham. Will be in March. I didn't know if we wanted to outright spoil it or just give a very obvious clue there.
No, we're going to do the first one's obvious. We're going to do Brass Birmingham. It'll be published on the March 6th Sunday episode. And so from between now and then, Robert, myself, and Mitchell have committed to studying up on brass. We're going to play a lot of brass. We're going to read up on what we see about brass strategies, try some different ones to see if they work, and then just have a nice deep conversation about brass, playing brass, not just a review of brass to talk about how we feel about brass, but just really give you some analysis, some hopefully value-added analysis on what we found when we engaged in brass, like got into it.
And if you want to play brass, there's a demo of it at Southern Board Game Festival. Sorry, I had to get that plug in real quick.
Tell y'all folks, get out there. I'm excited to be out there. Oh, and speaking of the podcast, that week, that Sunday, is a Sunday for the podcast release, so we will record live from Southern Board Game Fest. and publish that the Sunday the 20th of March. So expect that as well in the upcoming. So that's what we got. So great show tonight, Mitch. Mitchell, thank you for joining me again.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Once I sign off here, I'm going to go in my backyard and hit some guys with some padded swords. We're LARPing this afternoon. So I'm glad we got this in so I can go and be a nerd in another way.
Watch out for
gaming.
the swamps.
No swamp in the backyard, though there is a swamp at the university where we'll be gaming. It's the only swamp on a university campus in America, maybe the world, definitely in America.
Like legit, there's a real swamp out there?
Yeah, so actually I think it was World War II, it was a water reservoir in case the water got poisoned. And then afterwards, they were just like, what are we going to do with this? Oh, let's make it a swamp. It's like a man-made swamp. It's kind of cool.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Looking forward to meeting you out there.
Cool.
Thank you, folks, for listening all the way through to the end. We'll catch you on the next one. I'm Carlos.
I'm Mitchell.
And we're a podcast about
how we game.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for watching the Beans and Dice podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe.